Blog Talk Radio.
Looks like we had a little bit of technical difficulty. Yeah, maybe about 3 minutes worth. But glad to be here. It's Ted Hicks dialing in for Late Night Parents. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Late Night Parents, twitter.com Late Night Parent, or you can find me also as The Real Ted Hicks. Our website, I usually call it a portal, latenightparents.com or lnp.tv. Multiple ways to find us. Where do I even get started? Right now it's early in the morning, less than 24 hours away from celebrating my daughter's birthday. She's turning 14. So I guess I'm feeling a little nostalgic. Feeling a little bit older. Feeling a little bit accomplished. As you can, my wife and I have, over the last 14 years, been raising her. And really happy with the product that we're currently molding. So really excited about that. A lot of topics to cover on this podcast. I've just named it News and Notes. There's no guest. There's no intro music. There's no plugs or anything else like that. Though we have a lot of people to thank, because I think the last live show I did was prior to Thanksgiving. I think that was it. I'm not sure if I did another show or not. In between that time, I don't know. It's a little murky. It's a little murky right now. But I think the last show we did was talking about Black Friday and Cyber Monday and prepping you for what to be prepared for. So, hoping that everyone's enjoying the holiday and you're festive and attending holiday parties, with your colleagues all over. Hope we're all doing the right thing and not drinking too much, not eating too much either, making a fool out of themselves. Of course, not getting behind that wheel when you've had a drink or two. Uber is your friend. Your mobile app, you get to the point of your mobile phone is your friend. But I've got a top 10 items, top 10 lists for news and notes. And I'm just going to say, the usual. We talk education, technology, product reviews. Most of the guests that we have come on are parents, and they're pitching their ideas or their startup companies. So none of that tonight. News and notes where Ted Hicks shares the latest of Ted Hicks talks on LNP, with lots of topics to cover. So 10 items to cover. They vary. We're going to jump into this past, I would say about a week ago. I got a phone call from a friend. Being in the position I'm in, so I'm in information technology. more on the lines of site administration, overseeing a client site and managing those expectations. I do that. And it's more like a 24/7 job. But I would say about 5 years ago, I've taken on the fun part of the IT, where I could say, you kind of branch out. It's becoming that blogger, becoming that influencer. And I had the opportunity to get a phone call, like I said, about 168 hours ago, where things started brewing a little bit. And I was given an opportunity to attend the Jets-Giants game this past Sunday. And boy, was it a barn burner. So, and of course, when, someone reaches out to you, there's certain things that have to happen, messaging and approval from vendors and all of that stuff happened. Got to say a big thanks and a shout out to Procter and Gamble. Also, another sponsor for this was Key Food. We did a blog on LMP that talked about the New York Jets, the New York Football Giants, and Key Food. And the hashtag was the closest rivals. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. I mean, those that live in New York are familiar with, Rangers Islanders, Yankees Mets, Knicks Nets, that type of, internal rivalry, for the tri-state area. But on the Late Night Parent site, I put up an article. It was totally, full disclosure. It was sponsored by Procter and Gamble. But, I mean, my opinions are definitely my own. And I just talked about, Key Food, the Key Food Stores Cooperative, Incorporate, owns various stores, founded in Brooklyn back in 1937. And talks about the stores in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, also in Pennsylvania. I mean, little did you know, like a place like Key Food, a business like Key Food, the headquarters are on Staten Island. And there's various subsidiaries that fall under that Key Food Stores Co-op, Inc. I mean, and I was first introduced, as I put in my article, growing up in Queens, Laurelton, Queens, in the 1970s. That was one establishment. It was 3 blocks away from my house that I would frequent, that my parents would always send me, go to the store and go pick up this item. And I would walk down the block, or I would ride my bike or whatever like that. But Key Food was that one mainstay. And this is before, the Pathmarks of the world. And as you know, the Pathmarks of the world have come and gone. And those that are remaining, I think it's a very small footprint, if even. But the one great thing about it is the work that I did with Key Food this past week and Procter & Gamble allowed me to attend the 13th face-off between the Jets and Giants. And I did that at MetLife Stadium. And we were there bright and early, me and my buddy Eric, friend of about 30 years. I would say at least 30 years. When the opportunity presented itself, he was the first one I called because earlier this year I had planned on attending the Jets-Eagles with him. Very funny person, someone, like I said, a confidant for more than 30 years. We had a great time. We were razzing those Giants fans out there. But the Jets were able to pull it off in overtime, 23-20. Ryan Fitzpatrick had an unbelievable game. The Giants, for the 5th time, I guess, this season, leading in the 4th quarter, have lost the game. But You check out the Late Night Parents website. You're going to see the article in regards to the closest rival. Highlighted on there are videos by Eric Decker and Prince of Mukamura. A really nice, good plug. A really great day for friends and people that were out there tailgating from early in the morning. We'll go we'll segue into OTT, over the top TV. And we have an article coming out on LMP called "Are You Down with OTT?" And it was a play of words off of "Are You Down with OPP" from Naughty by Nature from, close to 25 years ago, that song that came out. But it just talks about OTT. Over-the-top television is going to be a big hit for consumers this festive season, with 54% of the viewers around the world planning to use an online TV service. But 45% of those subscribers are planning to cancel their subscription immediately or within 6 months. So with the LMP, we did some research that was carried out in Australia, Brazil, Germany, Singapore, the UK, and USA, found that around 25% of consumers already use an OTT service, and further 27% are planning to go OTT this festive season. It gives the full breakdowns of people that are already using it, planning to use it, and the percentage of consumers considering signing up for more than one. So we have that breakdown, an article that's going to be out in the AM. You talk OTT, you talk internet streaming, it is the hottest thing out there. Why? For one, being an IT professional, done some work in the AV world, it is the thing. You're talking about cord cutting on steroids, because even the large providers are looking at these solutions. Why? Because the subscription base continues to erode exponentially. So what do? Are you just going to sit there and, this whole place goes to hell? Your listener base, your viewership is in the toilet. People, if we think about it over the years, and I've said this on several other podcasts that I've participated in or interviewed subject matter experts, traditional TV had a great 50-year run. Millennials, the way TV is being consumed, totally different now. I'm going to watch it when I want to watch it versus I'm going to watch it when you tell me this episode is ready. Okay? So, a lot of great stuff with that. I use it in my home to stream the CBS network, CBS News Network, that's running 24/7. So it's I do it for my makeshift way of how I stream is through combo of my laptop, my Vizio TV that I have mounted, some of the smart apps that are on there. Like I said, it's a combo of things. But folks, if you're not into it, you got to get into it, whether it's a Chromecast or Apple TV, Amazon Fire, you name it, Roku. It's there. It's there. It's waiting for you. I'll go quickly, to segue into, but not totally getting off the topic, is Apple, the NFL, its network, and Thursday Night Football. There's talks out there, the rumblings going on out there. The NFL rights could be worth $250 billion to Apple or Amazon. There's a lot of talk going around. There was an article on Forbes.com, written by Eric Jackson, about why he thinks Apple should outbid traditional broadcast TV and cable operators for the NFL suite of Thursday night football games, which is up for bid. Over the past couple of years, that's been, you want to say it's been a pain point for the NFL because, so many people have access to the NFL Network. I mean, that's one thorn in the side, or people not willing to, put down their hard-earned money for it. And you think of ways to combat it. How do you get more subscribers? Number one, they got to make the Thursday night game the premier game. That should be your number 2 game of the week. If not number 2, then definitely number 3, because you get your Sunday night game, you get your Monday night game, which is drawing 20 to 25 million viewers weekly. And then you have your Thursday night game, where NFL Network has worked hand in hand with CBS. It's kind of like, I like to say, the work that I do with my pod, where I record the pod. Yes, it's recorded live. Usually it's recorded combo of Happy Hour Network and, for 2016, Jamagination Network. Jamagination Unlimited Network. So between those two networks, it's recorded. Then it's repackaged and it's sent out to our providers. And some of our providers that we were thankful to have every week are like NGSC Sports that powers us on the iHeartRadio app. I-95 Sports, Life Improvement Radio, UNIR1 Radio, FSC Radio. And then you can also find us, whether it's iTunes or SoundCloud, Spreaker. So if you look at it in that aspect, you have that product, and then you farm it out, you spread it out, you syndicate it out. But the article, which is on Forbes, talks about the amount of revenue that could be generated in 5 years for a package like that. Because that, you got Apple TV, they're a big player. But the key to it is, yes, you can have access to, cloud DVR for specific shows. But then you get into the live streaming. That's the hot market. You got the partnerships, but you get into the live streaming, live TV streaming, and you get yourself a package like Thursday Night Football, where, you kind of take the NFL Network off their hands. Not totally, but you're taking that product, you're making it available through Apple TV. And let's say right now, 20 to 25 million people have Apple TVs, regardless of the iteration or various versions of that Apple TV. They could turn around with the marketing plan, or with the there's no bigger engine than Apple when it comes to marketing, and turn around and sell 100 million of those Apple TV devices with the subscription services. They can then turn around and make the Thursday Night Football game the premier game, and stream it out to the folks on the iPhones. And then you look at, what about the market of folks that are Android users, but they want to have access to streaming, viewing that Thursday Night Football game. I mean, the article is so in depth on the amount of money they can make, the stocks, what it would mean to the other players out there. What if Amazon was able to get into that game? I think that right there is the hot ticket, and Goodell knows what he's doing. Because you sit there and say, well, do you make it available to network broadcast TV, or do you go to a TNT or cable subscriber, or do you make it something exclusive? Kind of like for how many years have we sat around and watched people stand outside on lines prior to the latest, iPhone or iPad or iDevice? I mean, because I tell you, I sit there in my office watching those town hall meetings, and it's very, very interesting. They have the pizzazz to put on a great show. But either way you look at it, it's up for bid. NFL Thursday night ticket is up for bid. We're going to see how this plays out at the end of the season. And, the bottom line is a move like this by Apple gets them into the live streaming sports area, and it would likely cause the Wall Street analysts to have to upgrade their price targets on their stock. So that's kind of the latest with Apple, the NFL, and its network. I think another article or post that we pushed out there today was on how to deal with cyberbullying in teens. I mean, and that was brought to us by our friends at Student Tutor. So, I mean, you got to pose that question. How do we deal with it? Because on so many different occasions, we've talked about cyberbullying. On so many different occasions, we've had experts. I think the expert we had last week was, how do I deal with the situation if my child is being bullied, and what if my child is the bully? Those are the two hot topics we had last week. So, I mean, as we all know, cyberbullying is a real problem in the world today. With the internet, I'm not going to say it became more and more integrated into everyone's lives, and younger students, may not grasp the consequences and even realize what they're doing when they sign into an online account. I mean, you look at cyberbullying statistics, they prove overwhelmingly that cyberbullying is the real issue in the world today. And if your student is on either side of the equation, there's at least a 50% chance they're not telling you. So what do? I mean, the best thing is you have to understand the signs of cyberbullying, whether your kid is the bully or the victim, and taking steps to help them. I mean, it's up to you to help them to change these statistics. And kids who are cyberbullies. I want to say something, important here. If your child is cyberbullying, it's highly likely they do not understand what they're doing. And I'm going to stop right there because that was the conversation I had last week. When I sat with some of the youth about a year ago, I asked the question, have you ever said anything mean to someone online? 3/4 of the room raised their hand. Did you ever say, hey, this person is fat or this person is ugly, and where other people started to pile on? That's cyberbullying right there. The fact that these communications occur in type and online greatly reduces their perceived impact, But kids believe that online statements simply don't count because they're not being said to someone's face. And that's quoted by Elizabeth K. Engler, who's a PhD. Kids will become bullies for a number of reasons, including, they feel worthless, there are problems at home, the bully has been bullied themselves. However, this does not change the effects of cyberbullying, and these can be severe. So, certain signs to look for. What do you see? Do you see your child has a large amount of social media accounts? Do you see that your child is being secretive about their online activity? Do you see that your child spends long hours on social media? I mean, what are you hearing? Are you hearing kind of snide comments or laughter from your child while they're online? Do they gossip or make cruel remarks exchanged to them and their friends about, an individual? Because those are signs. I mean, and what else is there? Is there a group or individual your child spends time with often, behaves mean or uncaring? Is your child has become more judgmental or critical? Is your child maybe more irritable or aggressive? I mean, because they may retaliate against rules. These are just a few things that you have to look at because you want to know what to do. So whether or not your child is cyberbullying, or you should educate them on what it is and why it matters, because cyberbullying is a serious issue. A child found guilty of cyberbullying can face legal charges, not to mention this kid will have to live with the effects of their actions on another person. So here's some tips on how to address the situation. You remove the internet access. Revoke access to all computers in the house except under your supervision. Consider using parental codes or passwords you can enter if they need computer for school purposes. I'm going to stop right here. Something that's not related. So, back in October, I ordered an upgrade for my son, an Xbox One. But guess what? Each and every time he wants to use it, I have to enter a password. Why? Is it a part of overparenting? No, it's a part of a parent who's sitting here to say, okay, I want to manage screen time, because you're not just going to sit here for the next, 24 hours staring away at the screen playing, Call of Duty. Another option is to have your child delete or deactivate all their social media accounts. You got to make sure to explain to your child why you are doing this. Explain that they may have access returned to them when they have taken a lot of time to talk to you seriously about the subject and demonstrate that they truly understand the importance. To start, you place a month limit, but extend this deadline as needed. You got to educate them on cyberbullying. You got to find articles and information on cyberbullying and read through them with your child. And afterwards, ask them to reflect on why they did it. You got to address the victim and their parents. It's important here to understand the spectrum of effects on cyberbullying may take on an individual, and it's really, really vast. So, for this reason, you got to do additional research or consult a professional in the field about how to do this. There's some, initial guidelines. You can call or write a letter to the parents to apologize for what has happened. Tell them you do not expect them to forgive your child, and don't expect this. Tell them that you're taking this very seriously and taking serious actions. Don't involve your child in the initial apology. Victims can express this apology as a threat, and it may be several months before this apology can be given. You know, kids who are cyberbullied, as I mentioned, the chances are your child is approaching you about being a victim of cyberbullying is really slim. It's more than likely they'll suffer in silence to whatever extent. So you got to remember the signs to look for. If they start spending more or less time on social media, if they are opting to delete accounts and asking to block people on their accounts, noticeable changes in their emotions after using social media, low self-esteem, and any initial sign of teen depression. We want to thank our friends at Student Tutor for reaching out to us and allowing us to repost that article. We might be running a little short on time, but a couple other items we got to get through is preventing holiday hazards. And like I said, preventing holiday hazards. How to prevent holiday hazards? I mean, you got to think about it. While there's probably no danger of grandma, getting run over by a reindeer, the holiday season offers challenges you don't encounter during the rest of the year. So why not resolve it now, how to keep yourself and your family safe over the winter holidays. So here are some areas that you can concentrate on. A fresh tree is a safe tree. Dry, dead trees are a fire hazard, so avoid selecting a tree that has already turned to a piece of firewood before it gets into your living room. Buy a fresh tree or troop out to the tree farm to cut it down yourself. It will last longer and be safer for staying alive and moist. If you buy a pre-cut tree, hold it upright and bounce it off the ground a few times. If a spray of needles comes off the tree, pick another tree and maybe another tree lot. Cut 2 inches from the bottom of the trunk to allow the tree to absorb the moisture and the water, the water in the tree daily. You got to be sure that the tree is in a safe, non-tip stand and that it should not be positioned near a fireplace, radiator, or any other type of heat source. If your tree is especially big, you may need to rig guy wires to be sure it's secure. Decorations and fire prevention. You got to check all light strings, all old and new, for broken sockets and frayed wires before putting them on your tree. Don't overload your sockets or extension cords. No more than 3 strands of lights per socket or cord. Whether your tree is in your home, use care with decorations that look like, candy. Small children may be tempted to take a bite. This raises the possibility of cuts, poisoning, and choking hazards. This caution also applies to small button batteries. You got to think about candles or the ever popular holiday tradition. How many times during the holiday, you say, hey, we're going to light candles. But flames they can be very, very dangerous. So be sure the candles are placed in secure, non-flammable vases and that they're positioned so that they can easily not be knocked over. And never leave candles burning while unattended. I can't tell you guys how many times when I'm at home and the candles are going, because, there's, these are scented candles. They're smelling nice. But if you think you're going to run out the house or you're, going to head downstairs, you really don't want them having those candles lit for an extended period of time. Fireplace safety. A roaring fire in the fireplace makes a wonderful backdrop for the holidays, but you have to be sure it's safe. You got to keep the area in front of the fireplace clear so that any sparks that make it through your fireplace screen will extinguish harmlessly on the hearth. Never burn gift wrap in the fireplace, as it may spark a flash fire that will either send large amounts of sparks through the screen or go upward and ignite the deposits in the chimney. You got to think about, party time. The holidays are a great time for visiting friends in their homes and hosting them in yours. If the party is at your house, be sure there's ample room for guests to walk around without upsetting the tree or decorations. And now this one is pretty hard. Offer non-alcoholic as well as alcoholic beverage options, and stop serving spirited drinks 2 or 3 hours before the party is set to end. Like I said, that's a hard one. But you got to think about it. You're serving drinks, alcoholic drinks. People are going to get into their automobiles, drive to who knows where, and you don't want to get that phone call. You got to make sure each group has a designated driver, or call a local cab or Uber to get your guests home safely. The other option, if your guest list is small, plan a party that includes an overnight stay and brunch the next day. You got to bring out your inner Emerald Lagasse by offering plenty of food choices to your guests. If the food has been sitting out at room temperature for 2 hours more, bacteria may develop that would cause food poisoning. So, you got to make this your mantra. When in doubt, throw it out. No matter how good the prize-winning Prosciutto wraps are, they're not worth the misery of food poisoning. That's just some tips to preventing holiday hazards. To me, they sound like legitimate tips. They really do. So, we had a article on winter driving tips by AAA. And we're only going to go through a couple items because, severe weather can be frightening and dangerous for automobile travel, and motorists should know the safety rules for dealing with winter road emergencies. So our good friends at AAA remind the motorists to be cautious while driving in adverse weather. For additional information on winter driving, AAA offers how to go on ice and snow brochure that's available in all their offices. You got to contact your local AAA club for more information. AAA recommends the following winter driving tips. You got to avoid driving while you're fatigued. You got to get the proper amount of rest before taking on the winter weather tasks that reduce driving risk. You never warm up a car in an enclosed area, such as a garage. How many stories do we hear like that? You got to make certain your tires are properly inflated. Never mix radial tires with other tire types. You got to keep your gas tank at least half full to avoid gas line freeze up. If possible, avoid using your parking brake in cold, rainy, and snowy weather. Do not use cruise control when driving on slippery surface. That could be wet ice or sand. You got to always look and steer where you want to go. And most importantly, use your seatbelt every time you get into the vehicle. Some tips on long-distance driving. Watch weather reports prior to a long-distance drive or before driving in isolated areas. Most importantly, delay trips when especially bad weather is expected. If you must leave, let others know your route, destination, and estimated time of arrival. Don't overexert yourself or try to push or dig your vehicle out of snow. Pack a cellular telephone. Well, no one leaves without a cellular telephone nowadays, your mobile phone, with your local AAA telephone number, plus blankets, gloves, hats, food, water, and any needed medication in your vehicle. Use whatever is available to insulate your body from the cold. This could include floor mats, newspapers, and our paper maps. Tie a brightly colored cloth to the antenna, or place a cloth at the top of a rolled up window to signal distress. At night, keep the dome lit on if possible. It only uses a small amount of electricity and will make it easier for rescuers to find you. I mean, those are just some tips on long distance winter driving tips. And tips for driving in the snow. What do you do slowly? You accelerate and decelerate slowly. You apply the gas slowly to accelerate is the best method for regaining traction and avoiding skids. Don't try to get moving in a hurry. And you got to take your time to slow down for a stoplight. Remember, it takes longer to slow down on icy roads. You got to drive slowly. Everything takes longer on snow-covered roads. Accelerating, stopping, turning, nothing happens quickly as on dry pavement. So you got to give yourself time to maneuver by driving slowly. I think it was last year. It was during the Winter Classic. I had a couple of my friends that came to New York. The Winter Classic was at Yankee Stadium. I believe it was Islanders Devils. We were heading out there, and last second, it snowed pretty bad. We opted out of going out there and went to Buffalo Wild Wings. Well, just before I hit Meadowbrook Parkway, it was all snow and ice. I'm telling you, the floor spinning around. The first thing I did was take off the gas. Took my foot off the gas and very slowly held tightly onto the steering wheel. Number one, slow it down. Number two, to grab control of it. You have to know your brakes, whether you have anti-lock brakes. The best way to stop is threshold braking. So you got to keep your heel of your foot on the floor and use the ball of your foot to apply firm, steady pressure on the brake pedal. And don't stop if you can't avoid it. There's a big difference in the amount of inertia it takes to start moving from a full stop versus how much it takes to get moving while still rolling. So if you can slow down enough to keep rolling until that traffic light changes, you do it. The most important tip I'm going to say is, when in doubt, you stay home. If you really don't have to go out, don't. Even if you can drive well in the snow, and I'm sure, because we have everyone out there that has these 4x4s, and hey, I'm just going to put in 4-wheel drive, but guess what? Whether you're 2-wheel or you're 4-wheel and you're on ice, it's going to give you the same result. So even if you can drive well in the snow, not everyone else can. So don't tempt fate. If you don't have somewhere that you have to be, watch the snow from indoors. That was a note from our friends at AAA. So I have a question or two on, do video games affect teen driving? I would say yes. Because the response is turn off that video game and do your homework already. It's practically the model of many households with teenagers and preteens. And several recent studies have shown that the virtual games can have a real-life effect on teen driving habits. First, the good news: playing video games can actually help young drivers develop concentration skills and faster reaction times. University of Rochester study showed that video game players develop greater sensitivity to their surroundings and are up to 25% faster and making correct choices. But screen time can also lead to reckless behavior. Once teenagers have their license in hand, the same study showed that the gamers who averaged more than 8 hours a day of racing were 3 times as likely to get into a car accident as those who played less than an hour. According to a recent study of drivers ages 16 to 24, more than 30% were more likely to drive faster after playing a driving game. A study from the same year found participants were more aggressive when they drove a simulator right after finishing a virtual race. So it's not just racing games that could spur risky driving. The Psychology of Popular Media Culture surveyed teenagers who played mature-rated video games involving violence. Those often played the games that were more than likely to admit to unsafe driving habits like speeding, tailgating, or not wearing seatbelts, all leading causes of teenage driver accidents. So how can parents make sure the safe driving message gets heard? Video games don't have to be banned altogether, but playing time should be limited, and that goes back to limiting the screen time. And it's harder as the kids become teenagers to limit that screen time. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends keeping kids' total screen time on smartphones, TVs, and games less than 2 hours per day. Not going to happen. I'll personally write the American Academic Pediatrics because you can't live without your mobile device today. Also encourage kids to choose racing games over fighting or shooter style ones. All right. So the reference I made to Call of Duty, maybe you shouldn't spend 8 hours, zoning out on it. But here are some additional ways to help teens develop healthy driving habits. You got to ask young drivers to turn off the screens well before getting behind the wheel. Prohibit speeding. Most teen drivers don't have the experience to handle a vehicle at high speeds. Encourage teens to leave early so they don't feel like they have to speed to get where they're going. Give new drivers extra practice in changing weather conditions. There's a reason racing games add rain to increase the difficulty of a course. You got to model safe driving habits, like leaving at least 2 seconds of space between your car and the car ahead. And as a parent, you write a parent-teen driving contract to set the expectation of teen driving. And that was a response to do video games affect teen driving? Yes, they do, clearly. Over the past couple of days, I was invited to 388 Restaurant. That's in Roslyn, New York. I could not turn it down. It was a cybersecurity seminar. There was a lot of good food going on there, and there was a special speaker, none other than four-time Stanley Cup winner Mike Bossy. And he was talking about leadership. He was giving us some stories with the late legendary coach Al Arbor, talking about some of his teammates during those years in the early 80s where that Islander dynasty was alive and well at the Nassau Coliseum. So it was a great night. Got a autographed picture. Took a picture with the great Mike Bossy. Wonderful. Got to thank our friends Semantic for reaching out to me to allow me to attend the event. Really, really excited about that. And before we close, we're going to talk real quickly about our friends at Splender. Splender's extra cashback campaign is extended Splender members can continue earning 50 to 150% more in cash back through the end of the year at more than 800 of their favorite online retailers. So Splender is a unique online cashback shopping site, and it announced today that it's extending its extra cashback campaign through the end of the year. The double cashback offer lets consumers earn even more money while shopping at more than 800 online retailers spanning travel, beauty, fashion, sporting goods, children's stores, home and essentials, and more. This offer is available for Splender members now through New Year's Eve. That's December 31st, 2015. I can't name an online store that Splender doesn't have a partnership with. So, I mean, we're talking Home Depot. We're talking Lego. We're talking the Disney Store. We're talking Shoe Buy, Bloomingdale's. We're talking Orbitz, Groupon, Hotels.com. It's all over. It's all over. So, I mean, you got to be smart with the way you spend your money. You got to be smart this holiday season. Everything is costly. Everyone is, putting their coins together to ensure that they stay within their holiday budget. And it's key, because if you've already planned how you're going to afford this year's gifts, decorations, plane tickets, sugar plums, congratulations, because you're ahead of 58% of Americans who say they don't make a holiday budget. When it comes to staying on track, it can seem like the world is working against you for the holiday because the deals and seasonal sales. Here's a couple of quick tips to sticking to your plans. You have great sites like Splender, but also, if you don't use Splender, and I'm not talking about, Splender, the sugar, or is that Splendid, or I don't know. But here's a couple of tips to help you stick to your plan. Double check your figures while reviewing your budget. Make sure you've accounted for all holiday expenses, centerpieces for dinner, garlands for parties, and gifts for, the Secret Santas at the office. It might surprise you to see what you spend every year. Non-gift items add up, and many more people forget to factor them into their budgets. Set clear priorities. If you set a spending limit, make sure that you put the money towards whatever brings you the most joy. Take the time to really figure out what makes you happy. It's really important to you that your children get a lot of gifts. And that's fine. But maybe you and your spouse agree to spend less on gifts on each other. It's easier to stick to a budget when it reflects what you really want to be spending on. You got to look at the bargains all year. Eagle Eye shoppers can pick up great seasonal decorations at Tag, at garage sales in the off-season, giving you more room to play around with for your holiday budget. We picked up a nice $700 artificial tree at an estate sale in our town for $35. Now we don't have to spend the usual $100 or so on a Christmas tree. Bring a friend along. Take a friend or spouse to the mall for support. Tell them your budget and your shopping list so that you can stop from making impulse purchases for yourself and others. Start a holiday fund. Starting in January in 2016, save a little bit every month and use this earmarked money for gift purchases and other holiday expenses. If you save just $75 per month from January to November, and by December, you have plenty more than the $804 most Americans say they'll spend on the holidays. Saving over time will help you avoid the large cash outflow at the end of, next year, and the temptation to carry a holiday debt on a credit card or take out a holiday loan. Designating savings specifically for holiday use also means that you're likely to save more and less likely to cheat and use non-holiday funds for holidays expenses. Studies show that earmarking money helps people exert more self-control over spending. I mean, you got to be smart about this. You can't be an impulse buyer. And with that, that's our news and notes for this week. Next week's show, we're going to have a couple of guests scheduled. Excited. We're going to talk about technology gifts for what are the hottest technology gifts for this season. We're going to have Niall Nickel, who I also is a label mate on Life Improvement Radio, who's going to be joining us to talk that. Whole host of others. Hope you're doing well. You and yours are doing well, enjoying the holiday season. I want to say thank you for listening to Late Night Parents. This is Ted Hicks. Catch us on Twitter, Late Night Parent. Catch us on Facebook, Late Night Parent. Go to latenightparents.com. And the podcast is always available. Always available. Thursday mornings, the latest. With that being said, thanks so much. And we say good night.